Ever feel like you're on autopilot, you know, like you're doing all the right things, checking off the boxes, good job, loving relationships, hobbies you enjoy, but something's missing.
Yeah, I've totally been there.
Like you're going through the motions of a good life, but not actually living it, you know?
I hear that. It's like you have all the ingredients, but the recipe isn't quite right.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're diving into today, how to actually live a good life, not just pretend to.
Love it.
We're taking a deep dive into Jonathan Field's book, How to Live a Good Life. Have you had a chance to check it out yet?
I have. I'm actually about halfway through. Such a good read.
It's so insightful, right?
Yeah, he has a way of explaining these really complex ideas in a way that just clicks.
Totally. And one of the things I love most is this framework he lays out called the good life buckets. It's so simple, but it's been really helpful for me in actually identifying what areas of my life need a little more attention. You mentioned wanting more energy and purpose. Well, Fields breaks it down into 3 buckets. We'll get into those in just a sec.
Yeah, let's hear.
Okay, so the good life buckets: vitality, connection, and contribution. Before we unpack each one, the story behind how he came up with this whole concept, it's pretty wild. We'll circle back to it, I promise.
Okay, you've got me intrigued.
But first, let's talk energy. We all want to feel that vibrant, energized feeling more often, right?
For sure.
So the vitality bucket, it's not just about hitting the gym every day, although that's definitely part of it. It's more about feeling energized on all levels, physically, mentally, emotionally. Imagine waking up excited for your day, having the focus to power through your to-do list, and still having energy left over for, actually enjoying your life.
Okay, yeah, that sounds amazing. I feel like especially these days that feels impossible sometimes.
Right. And you're someone who loves to really go deep on things, understand them thoroughly.
Oh, absolutely. I'm all about the deep dive.
Exactly. And that takes serious mental energy. Fields actually talks about how our physical and mental energy are constantly influencing each other. We tend to think of them as separate, but they're totally intertwined.
Yeah, like even something as simple as being dehydrated can totally mess with your focus. It's like trying to run your brain on fumes.
Ugh, tell me about it. I've definitely had those afternoons where I'm like, why am I so mentally checked out right now? And then I realize I haven't had enough water, or I ate a huge plate of pasta for lunch. It's amazing how much our physical state impacts our mood, our focus, even our creativity.
It's wild. It's like our brains need the right fuel to function optimally.
Exactly. So it's not just about what we're feeding our bodies, but also what we're feeding our minds.
Totally agree. And that's something Fields emphasizes too, that mental and emotional well-being are just as crucial for overall vitality.
Hmm.
He talks about mindfulness, stress management, even cultivating a sense of awe and wonder.
It makes sense, right? If you're constantly stressed or burnt out, it doesn't matter how much green juice you drink or how many miles you log on the treadmill.
You're still going to feel depleted.
Exactly. And speaking of feeling connected, let's move on to the next bucket: connection.
This is a big one.
Huge. And it's something that really resonates with both of us. Like you mentioned, you thrive on interactions and diverse perspectives.
Oh, absolutely. I love connecting with people, hearing their stories, understanding their worldviews. It's so enriching.
Me too. And Fields argues that this need for connection, for belonging, is actually wired into us. We're social creatures at heart.
It's true. We crave that sense of belonging, of feeling seen and understood.
And it's not just about having a ton of friends or being the most popular person in the room. It's about the quality of those connections.
Totally. It's about having those people in your life, whether it's a partner, close friends, family, who you can truly be yourself around.
Yes. And feeling a sense of belonging within your community too. Feeling like you're part of something larger than yourself.
Exactly. Whether that's your neighborhood, a group of people who share your hobbies, or even an online community.
It's about feeling seen, heard, understood on multiple levels.
100%.
Yeah.
And I love how Fields doesn't shy away from the fact that building and maintaining these connections takes effort. It's not always easy, but it's so worth it.
So true. It's about showing up authentically, being vulnerable, putting in the work to nurture those relationships over time. It's like anything else worth having in life, it takes effort. Before we jump into the last bucket, I want to rewind for a sec back to something you mentioned earlier about wanting to feel more purpose in your life.
Yeah, totally.
Because that's where this last bucket comes in: contribution.
Okay, bring it on.
And to really illustrate how powerful this bucket can be, we have to talk about the story behind the book. Like I mentioned earlier, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, you teased that earlier. I'm hooked.
Okay, so Fields, the author, he had this aha moment watching his mom go through a tough time.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and she was an artist, super vibrant, creative person, but during this rough patch, it was like her creative spark just fizzled out.
Wow. I can only imagine how tough that must have been to watch.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about the art, it was like this loss of purpose, this dimming of her inner light really impacted her whole being.
That's heartbreaking. I feel like we've all experienced that in some form, maybe not to that extent, but that feeling of just feeling lost.
Totally. And witnessing that firsthand, it made Fields question, like, what truly makes a life feel good? And how can we help others rediscover that for themselves?
Oh, such a powerful question.
Right. And that question sent him on a mission, basically.
I love that. So what did he do?
He dove headfirst into researching, like, all the things psychology, spirituality, even business to really understand, like, the core ingredients of a fulfilling life.
Oh, talk about a deep dive, right?
Kidding. And that journey eventually led him to start the Good Life Project.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. It's a platform dedicated to, helping people find more meaning, more purpose in their lives.
So cool. It's like his life's work became answering that initial question about his mom.
Totally. And this book, it's like the culmination of all that research, all those conversations, all those aha.
Moments, I can see why it's resonating with so many people.
And it all comes back to these buckets, like that feeling we were just talking about, feeling lit up by your work, by using your skills and passions. That's the energy of the contribution bucket.
Makes sense.
It's not just about like having a fancy title or making a ton of money, although those things can be nice. It's about feeling like you're making a difference.
Yeah, like your work has meaning. It matters.
Exactly. And there's this quote by Mary Oliver that Fields uses in the book. She asks, "What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?"
Oh, I love that quote. It's such a good reminder that our time is precious.
Right. And it's up to us to find what makes it feel meaningful.
Absolutely. And what I appreciate about Field's take on contribution is that it doesn't have to be this big, grand gesture.
Totally.
It's about finding those small, everyday ways to make a difference, to align your actions with your values.
I love that because sometimes I think we get caught up in this idea that like we have to quit our jobs and join the Peace Corps or something to make a real contribution.
Right. Like it has to be this big, dramatic thing.
Exactly. But it's the little things too, like how you treat the barista, making your coffee, or taking the time to really listen to a friend who's going through a tough time.
It's about those small acts of kindness, those moments of genuine connection that can really brighten someone's day.
And the cool thing is those small acts, they often fill our own buckets too.
Totally. It's like this positive feedback loop.
Okay, so we've covered the three buckets: vitality, connection, contribution. But Fields, he doesn't just leave us hanging with these concepts. He's got these things he calls the three laws of the buckets, and they're all about like how to actually put these ideas into practice, how to keep those buckets full.
Okay, now we're talking.
Right. So law number one, the law of leaky buckets. Catchy, right?
I like it. What's it all about?
It basically means our buckets, they don't stay full on their own.
Right. It's not a one and done kind of deal.
Exactly. It's like we can't just like meditate once and be stress-free forever or go on one amazing date night and expect our relationships to thrive on autopilot.
It takes effort. Like anything worth having in life, you got to nurture it, tend to it consistently.
Yes, it's about building those healthy habits, those little rituals that nourish our minds, bodies, and relationships over time.
I'm all about those little rituals. What are some of your favorites, by the way? We should swap notes sometime.
Ooh, yes, totally. But okay, back to the law of leaky buckets. So it's this reminder that, like, we're always going to have to refill those buckets, right? Life throws curveballs, we get busy, we forget.
It happens.
Uh,
And that's okay. It's part of the human experience.
Totally. It's not about being perfect, it's about being aware.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing when those buckets are starting to feel a little low and taking action to refill them.
And that actually brings us to the second law, the law of interconnected buckets.
Ooh, I like this one. How do they all connect?
Well, basically, it's this idea that, like, our energy, our connections, our sense of purpose, they're not these separate things happening in isolation. They're all interconnected.
Right. It's like they all influence each other.
Exactly. Like, have you ever noticed how when you're feeling super run down physically, like your vitality bucket's bone dry, it's harder to be fully present with your loved ones?
Yeah.
Like your connection bucket takes a hit too.
100%. Or like when I'm feeling creatively stuck, like my contribution bucket's running low,
Yeah.
it totally impacts my mood and my energy levels.
Yes, it's like this domino effect.
Totally. And on the flip side, when one bucket is full, it can have this ripple effect, making the others overflow too.
So true. It's like this beautiful cycle of well-being.
Okay, so 2 laws down, 1 to go. What's the final law?
The law of honest buckets.
Ooh, sounds intriguing. Lay it on me.
This one's all about tuning into those internal signals, being honest with ourselves about how we're actually feeling, what's working and what's not.
Ooh, that self-awareness piece is so key.
Right. It's easy to power through on autopilot, ignore those little whispers that something's off, but
But those whispers can turn into shouts if we don't listen.
exactly. So it's about paying attention to those early signs of depletion. Are you feeling constantly exhausted even after a good night's sleep? Are you withdrawing from your loved ones? Are you feeling uninspired or unmotivated?
Those are all signs that one of your buckets might need some attention.
Exactly. And the sooner we listen to those signals, the easier it is to course correct.
It's like prevention is key.
100%. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. The three buckets: vitality, connection, contribution, and the three laws that govern them. What's sticking with you the most?
I think for me, it's that reminder that taking care of ourselves isn't selfish, it's essential. Like, if we want to show up fully in the world, for ourselves and for others, we got to make sure our own buckets are full.
Sure, well said. And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't have to be this big, overwhelming thing.
Right. It's those small, consistent actions that add up over time.
Exactly. What's one small step you can take today to nourish one of your buckets?
Ooh, good question. I think for me, it's scheduling that walk with a friend I've been meaning to catch up with. It'll nourish both my connection and vitality buckets at the same time.
I love that. See, you're already putting it into practice. And for our listeners, keep in mind, it's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Even just 5 minutes of meditation, a quick phone call with a loved one, or spending a few minutes working on a passion project, those small actions can create a ripple effect, boosting your well-being and creating more of that good life energy we're all after.
So true. And remember, those buckets, they might leak from time to time, and that's okay. It's part of the journey. Just keep coming back to those 3 laws, keep listening to your inner wisdom, and you'll find your way back to that sweet spot of feeling energized, connected, and lit up by life.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
This has been such a great conversation. I always learn so much from you.
Likewise. Until next time.
And to our amazing listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the Good Life buckets. Head over to our online community and share your reflections. What's one small step you can take today to nourish your own well-being? And if you want even more wisdom and actionable advice, definitely check out Jonathan Field's book, How to Live a Good Life. It's a game changer. Until next time, keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep those buckets full.